Erik the Red was such a dangerous man that he was banished not once, but twice. Born in Norway around the middle of the 10th century, he grew up in a family already marked by violence and exile. His father, Thorvald, had been convicted of manslaughter and forced to leave Norway, leading the family to settle in Iceland. Erik's distinctive red hair and beard earned him the nickname Erik the Red, and later writers suggested the name may also have reflected his fiery temper. He married a woman named Theodhild. Although Erik was not especially wealthy, Theodhild came from a prosperous family, and her father likely provided land that allowed the couple to establish themselves and build a successful life in Iceland. Yet Viking society was often governed by honor, reputation, and revenge, and even minor disputes could spiral into deadly conflicts. The conflict that changed Erik's life began when his slaves accidentally caused a landslide that damaged a neighboring farm. In retaliation, 2 neighbors killed the slaves responsible. Erik responded by killing them in the dispute, triggering a cycle of violence that quickly escalated. The killings led to Erik being declared an outlaw in his local district, but the final blow came when Erik's friend refused to return to him valuable carved high-seat pillars, symbols of family status and authority, which he had left for safekeeping. When a dispute over the pillars turned violent and several more men were killed, Erik was sentenced to 3 years of exile from Iceland around the year 982. The punishment left him with few options. Iceland was already on the edge of the known world, and beyond its western horizon lay only the cold and unpredictable Atlantic Ocean. Yet rumors had circulated for years about land farther west. Sailors claimed they had glimpsed distant coastlines, but nobody had attempted to establish a permanent settlement there. With nothing left to lose, Erik decided to investigate for himself. Around the year 982, he sailed westward into waters few Europeans had ever dared to explore. What he found was a massive island dominated by glaciers, mountains, and deep fjords. Although much of the landscape was harsh and unforgiving, the Greenland Erik encountered was not quite the frozen landscape we imagine today. During a warmer climatic period known as the medieval warm period, parts of the coastline supported grasslands suitable for farming and livestock. Greenland was not completely untouched. Earlier, Arctic peoples had lived there long before the Norse arrived, although many had disappeared from the regions Erik explored. Their presence was a reminder that others had survived in this harsh environment before him. Over the next several years, he explored these shores, learning where settlements might be possible and gradually becoming convinced that people could build new lives there. When his exile finally ended, Erik returned to Iceland with an extraordinary proposition. He had found a new land, but discovering it was only half the challenge. To create a colony, he needed settlers willing to abandon their homes and gamble everything on an uncertain future across the sea. According to the Icelandic sagas, Erik understood the power of a good story. He named the island Greenland, reportedly believing that people would be more eager to move there if the name sounded attractive. Whether this was a clever marketing strategy or simply a reflection of the greener coastal areas he had explored remains a matter of debate, but there is no question that the name worked. In 985 or 986, Erik assembled a fleet of 25 ships of settlers and set sail once more. The journey was dangerous, and 11 ships were lost before reaching their destination. Those who survived established what became known as the Eastern Settlement and the Western Settlement, the foundations of a Norse society that would endure for centuries. Over time, Greenland's Norse population may have reached between 2,000 and 5,000 people. For centuries, Viking communities survived there, raising livestock, trading with Europe, and maintaining one of the most remote outposts in the medieval world. Erik himself became the colony's leading chieftain, ruling from his estate at Brattahlid. There, he built the colony's political and economic center, overseeing a settlement that would become the heart of Norse Greenland. But success would not last forever. In the year 1002, a ship arriving from Iceland appears to have brought a deadly epidemic to Greenland. The disease spread rapidly through the isolated settlements, killing many colonists. Erik the Red is believed to have died during the outbreak around 1003. Leadership of the colony later passed to his son, Leif Erikson. Erik's greatest legacy may have been his son. Leif Erikson sailed beyond Greenland and became the first known European to reach North America in the year 1000. nearly 5 centuries before Columbus. For generations, Greenland's Norse settlements survived on the edge of the known world. But from the late 13th and early 14th centuries, conditions began to change. The climate grew colder as the Little Ice Age gradually took hold. Growing seasons shortened, sea ice expanded, and farming became increasingly difficult. Livestock struggled to survive harsh winters, while dangerous ice conditions made voyages to and from Europe more difficult. Trade declined, isolation increased, and the colony's economy weakened. Historians also believe tensions with Inuit populations may have contributed to the settlers' challenges. By the mid-14th century, the western settlement had been abandoned. A church official named Ivar Bardarson later reported finding empty farms and deserted buildings where a thriving community had once stood. What happened to the settlers remains one of medieval history's greatest mysteries. Historians have proposed several explanations, including climate change, famine, disease, economic decline, and conflict with Inuit groups who had expanded into Greenland during the same period. Some theories even suggest that a number of settlers may have been killed during clashes with indigenous peoples, although no conclusive evidence has ever been found. The eastern settlement survived longer, but by the early 15th century, it too disappeared from the historical record. When later visitors arrived, they found silent churches, abandoned farms, and no trace of the people who had once built a Viking society on Greenland's rugged shores. After over 400 years, Erik the Red's colony had disappeared, bringing the great age of Norse expansion across the North Atlantic to an end. What began as a sentence of exile ultimately changed the course of exploration. A man driven from society transformed punishment into opportunity, turning an unknown coastline into a new frontier for the Viking world. More than 1,000 years later, Erik the Red remains a symbol of the extraordinary ambition, resilience, and daring that defined the age of the Vikings.